On today's show, biggest takeaway from the opening stretch of this Rockets season, continued thoughts on the Rockets matchup with the Pistons, Jalen Green versus Cade Cunningham, as well as the offensive struggles that this team has faced, rotations, and more. And here to do that with me, as he is each and every week, Kelly Iko.
Yo, it's Locked On. Let's get it.
All right, coming up right now at Locked On Rockets.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start.
With the second pick in the 2021 NBA Draft, the Houston Rockets select Jalen Green.
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal.
I'm going to keep working. I'm going to keep getting better every day. I'm going to keep perfecting my craft. And every time I step on that floor, I'm coming.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rockets, the best and only daily podcast covering your Houston Rockets. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and partner at Apollo Media. Be sure to follow along on Twitter at JT Gatlin, the show, of course, at Locked On Rockets, as well as at Apollo HOU. We thank you for making Locked On Rockets your first listen of the day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by McDonald's. Proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an unofficial community center. A big thank you to our friends over at McDonald's for always being there. I'm loving it. Now, we've got a lot of different topics we're going to get into in today's show, and joining us to do that each and every week, as he does from here on out until the end of time, is none other than Rockets beat reporter for The Athletic, Biggie Velvet himself, Kelly Iko. What's up, Kelly? How's it going?
Yo, I'm back. Yeah, I can't get rid of me, man. I'm here.
I know we're stuck with him. Y'all better like Kelly, because we're stuck with him moving forward.
Yeah.
But Kelly, I gotta ask you, because we've done a couple pods now, and I meant to ask you when I got you pulled on during training camp. You got to tell us where Biggie Velvet came from. What's up with that?
You
nickname?
want the backstory? Okay.
I want the backstory on it. Before we get into any Rocket stuff today, what's the backstory on Biggie Velvet?
So, I think it was 2 seasons ago. I was doing an NBA TV hit, and it was with Dennis Scott. For who else? I think it was Carlos Boozer. I believe so. After the segment, Dennis Scott was like, "You know who you sound like? Sound like Biggie Smalls a little bit." and he was talking about my voice, like I guess how I sound, and I thought that was funny as hell, and it kind of caught on. And after the segment, there was like, "I think we have a new name for you, and that's Biggie Velvet." And everyone said, just bust out into laughter, and then I think I was at Oracle Arena that day, and Andre Iguodala came out of the locker room. I guess the TV was on in the Warriors locker room. He was like, "What's up, Biggie Velvet?" And so from then it just caught on, and everyone just called me that, like, everywhere I went, and it just was kind of my thing. The one time I had on a velvet coat, and then that just became my brand. So
I love that. That's absolutely incredible.
That's Biggie Velvet.
My main takeaway from this is I need an NBA TV hit so that I can pick up a dope ass nickname like Biggie Velvet. Yeah. maybe one day when I get on your level. All right. So I'm glad we got
Great Gatsby.
I would take it. I would take it. All right. I'm glad we got that backstory out the way, because I wanted the origins of the Biggie Velvet nickname. But Kelly, let's dive into this. We are now, handful of games through this Rockets season. Rockets are on a 9-game skid. And, right. We know this is supposed to be a developmental season, and we're going to talk about some of the development or potentially lack thereof that we've seen so far this season. But before we get there, just, give me your biggest takeaway from the first 11 or so games of this season.
There's a lack of focus. That's kind of been the biggest takeaway in all these games. They've lost, 9 in a row? And it's not like they've been getting blown out in any of these games. They're competitive the first half, 30, 35 minutes or so. And then there's like a 5 or 6 minute stretch where everything falls apart, and they spend the rest of the game trying to get back into those contests. And at this level, yes, this is a young team. Yes, they're going to be competitive, and they're going to, put teams on edge at times, but to win in this league, you have to put on a complete performance for 48 minutes. It's just how it is. This league is too competitive, too good, too many good teams out there for you to kind of slack off and think you can kind of wing at the end. This is not the team of old where you had a James Harden or Chris Paul to bail you out. This is a young team trying to learn on the fly, trying to develop in season. It's very hard to do. Development typically takes place in the off season, takes place in the summer. Trying to develop during the season, that's kind of hard because there's not a lot of practice time really. The games are kind of like your practice time. And, for this young team trying to get through that, you kind of see the third quarters, the end of game collapses, the lack of attention to detail, final possessions, stuff like that. It just happens. And then you find yourself 1-10, in a league where it's kind of hard to catch up once you're that far behind the 8 ball. But, some of that is to be expected because there are a young team going through those motions. But a lot of stuff isn't. You should be able to clean up certain mistakes. Stephen Silas has talked a lot about, just the focus and attention to detail, doing stuff in the morning and carrying over to nighttime has been the issue with these young teams. So, that's kind of been my biggest takeaway.
I'm glad it feels like we've got a little bit of like cohesion here. We're just already, vibing on 100, Kelly, because that's kind of basically where I come away too is,
Right.
what I have written down on my notes over here is, I come away thinking this team has shown an incredible amount of talent already, right? They've played up to the level of competition, but they've also kind of played down to the level of some of their competition. They've shown, spurts of talent, but they're not disciplined. They're not focused, like you said.
Right.
So I'm glad you highlighted that because I think that's definitely something that we've seen with the free throw shooting, the turnovers, which some of these are to be expected with them being such a young team. But at the same time, do you think that's, do you think the catalyst behind that is because of like their youth, or do you think it's a little bit of coaching? Where do you think some of these issues are stemming from at their core?
I think it's primarily the youth. Whenever you mix, I don't think they have an identity yet. And when you don't have an identity, you tend to have these kind of, collapses. This is a team that has a lot of young players, but they also have established veterans that are still heavily involved in the rotation. You have to pick a side. I think if you're going to go all on development, go all on development. But it's hard for coaches to have to do that because coaches want to win games. So it's incredibly hard to tell a coaching staff, play all these young guys at the same time, forget the record. You can't do that. So that's what leads you to playing David Nwaba, playing Eric Gordon, playing Daniel Tice, those guys. You want DJ Augustin. And you try to mix that with, Kevin Porter Jr., Jalen Green, Jae'Sean Tate, Kenyon Martin Jr., Alperen Sengun. You're trying to mix and match. And I think that lack of identity is probably the biggest thing. It's not coaching because those are high level coaches. It's not, part of it is youth, but it's more so identity. This team hasn't found their identity 11 games into the season, which is not that. It's kind of surprising, but it's also not because, you look around the league, even Detroit that came in last night, you can see what their identity is. Like they know what they're trying to do. Yes, they're 2-9, but you can see how they play that game that they know what they want to do at all times. The Rockets, they talk a good game, but they've yet to show that on a consistent basis. So until they do that, these kind of losses will keep happening.
Speaking of the Detroit Pistons, want to talk about that little bit of a marquee matchup between Jalen Green, Cade Cunningham, as well as Jalen Green's kind of development to this point, how he's being utilized by the Rockets. We're going to get there after a quick message from our friends over at McDonald's. Today's episode of Locked on Rockets is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's a place where friends and family can come to reconnect, a place where classmates can meet up for a study group, knowing they'll have dependable Wi-Fi and an endless supply of French fries. Win or lose, it's a place where teammates, competitors, the home team or the away team can come to refuel and recharge. It's the place you always look forward to at stopping by on a long road trip to rest your legs and refuel, reconnect, all that good stuff. Look, I can't drive past McDonald's without immediately craving some chicken nuggets or like a spicy chicken sandwich, or when I'm really hungry, right, get me a Texas home style burger, extra mustard, extra onions, extra pickles, large fry, Dr. Pepper to wash it all down with. It's got my mouth watering right now just thinking about it. Big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. I'm loving it. And another message from our friends over at betonline.ag, because BetOnline is back and better than ever with a new web interface for the start of basketball season, more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains the number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to their new website and use promo code LOCKEDON for a 50% welcome bonus. 50% welcome bonus on your very first deposit. Again, promo code locked on to receive your bonus. That's LOCKEDON for a 50% bonus on your very first deposit. Basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC, even your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. We thank you for making Locked On Rockets your first listen of the day. Continuing our conversation with Rockets beat reporter for The Athletic, Kelly Iko, as we do each and every week. But based on Kelly's first segment and his backstory on the Biggie Velvet nickname, I have updated our background graphic on the fly. So now he is Biggie Velvet for the rest of this show. All right. If you are on YouTube, then you can see the Biggie Velvet tag under Kelly's camera. So that's what we're rolling with for the rest of the show. Now, Kelly, now that we got you sufficiently hyped up for this segment, let's talk about this Jalen Green, Cade Cunningham matchup. What did you see going on the court between these two guys? And we've got to talk about the big moment, the monstrous dunk from Jalen. And frankly, we got to talk about this. Is it a budding rivalry? Is Jalen trying to make it something it's not?
Yes, it is. No, it's a rivalry. Like, yes, you could tell. Go back to Summer League, you could tell Cade wants to stick it to Jalen because he heard all the talking about how Jalen wanted to be the number one pick. He heard everything about Detroit. And I don't care if Cade, acts like he doesn't bother him. It might not bother him, but it's still going to be a rivalry. It doesn't matter if Jalen is the one doing all the talking right now. Cade is the rivalry is still on the court too. Whether you're talking or not, it's an exciting game. I think the biggest takeaway from that first matchup, and I actually caught up with Jalen after the game, and because this is going to be something that, it's going to be the next 15 years. They're always going to be connected because of, going 1 and 2. And I kind of asked him what was his biggest takeaway, like from the whole thing, and he said it was a good experience. Like this is fun. This is what he loves to do. This is competing at the highest level with someone that obviously he has respect for, but he still wants to beat him any chance he gets. And they called it a learning experience. Being a rookie, every game is going to be a learning experience, as he said. But this game in particular was a good one for him because it showed him, kind of the difference in how teams can approach things and stuff like that. So it was an exciting game. I think Jalen Green showed kind of poise, how he handled the game from an offensive standpoint. He kind of was aggressive early on, which kind of was expected. He wanted to come out, a national TV game, get the crowd going, get the guys going. I think the Rockets' problem sometimes, and we'll see it during games, is that Jalen Green is not on the ball enough. Whereas, you see whenever he's going downhill, and Christian would say that after the game, in fact, they love it because it makes them that much more dangerous. But when he's staying on the wing, not touching the ball, and then getting it with like 5 on the shot clock, that's not efficient. It's a broken play. Stephen Silas called it a broken plays. They have certain things they want to do, certain actions they want to go to, but the Rockets need to do a better job of putting him more on the ball in those situations and letting him dictate what the defense does. But from that Pistons Rockets showdown, I think he had a good game. What were he finished with 23 and 5, something like that. Pretty good shooting. I think where he messed up was after the trash talk. Dang, he wasn't as involved and they won that big run, and then they never caught the lead again. So, but it was exciting from a entertainment standpoint. You see two young guys going at it. Cade is as cool as an ice cube, baby. That guy is something else, man. And even if he doesn't turn out to be a superstar, he's always going to be an extremely high-level player. I just think that to be a superstar, you kind of need that mean streak. You kind of need that edge, like the whole, in your face, stuff like that. And Cade's kind of too cool for school, so I don't know about that. But it was a good game.
I think one of the things that I immediately thought of, because it felt like it felt like a lot of people were trying to give Jalen Green, a lot of grief for, trying to hype himself up in this game, with the monster dunk on Cade and then, talking smack and everything. But it kind of reminded me of, you saw The Last Dance, right? Everybody saw The Last Dance.
Right.
So, that when they're telling that story of MJ, how he made up that fake story in his head to get psyched up before going up against an opposing player, it's like, it's that level of like almost like being a little bit psychotic, where he's wanting to hype himself up and get fired up for this game so that he can, whatever he's got to do, put his team on his back, get into the game mentally. And so I don't understand why people are trying to like downplay or disregard what Jalen Green's doing on the court.
It's a hot take world. Yeah. It's just Twitter is just a cesspool when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it can just be boiled down to the Twitter sphere kind of having a take and I guess running with it. But an area that I do want to focus on really quick here is, you talk about Jalen not having the ball in his hands enough, and especially after that big dunk that he went scoreless the rest of the game. He had 4 shots in the fourth quarter, but as you alluded to, and as I did in the post game recap, a lot of them were off broken sets, broken plays where he was getting the ball with 5-6 seconds left on the clock. Those weren't good attempts; those were rushed attempts, to try and salvage something at the end of a shot clock. So, are the Rockets prioritizing Jalen Green enough when it comes to their offensive sets in your mind? Do they need to make him more of a focal point offensively?
And that was why I said earlier that, to me, I think Houston views developing Kevin Porter to a point guard a bit more important than Jalen Green's development, because they see that it's an easier job seeing Jalen Green ascend than converting Kevin Porter Jr. to a full-time point guard. So because the job is harder, they have to prioritize that more. And that's why you see, and when you couple that with the fact that Jalen Green he's not an aggressive guy by nature, like a ball dominant, give me the ball every time, it's hard. Like, even when he went on that run, because he's a microwave scorer. When he went on that run, you saw the next 5 possessions, he was calling for the ball. He was asking for the ball, like visibly asking for the ball, and wasn't getting it. So I just think that, they see Kevin Porter Jr.'s development as more important than Jalen Green's right now, because Jalen Green's going to be all right. He's 19. He's going to learn. He's already shown that he can score at this level, at a high level. And he hasn't even learned half of the NBA game yet. So once he taps into all of that, the sky is the limit for him. But for right now, I think they need to do a better job still of putting him in more favorable situations. You want to put your young guys. This is somebody that you drafted 2nd overall pick. He's earning damn near $40 million right now, right? This is someone who's going to be the face of your franchise for the next 10, 15 years, if everything goes right. You want to put him in position to succeed from day one. And they have a lot of things to juggle, so understandable. You still trying to develop, trying to let Christian Wood play different positions. You're trying to incorporate Daniel Tice, trying to play fast, trying to have Kevin. It's a lot of moving parts this season. So it's not all about Jalen Green, and that's kind of why you see him sometimes not being prioritized. So it's a matter of circumstance. The only question is, how long do you think that goes on until this team kind of wakes up and says, we should probably feature our number 2 guy a little bit more, or get him to be more aggressive?
Yeah, I agree with the points you laid out, and I do think that it is. I don't envy Stephen Silas for the position that he's being put in, with having to juggle so many different variables with this current Rockets team, with the veterans, with Jalen Green, with Kevin Porter Jr.'s development, all those different things. And so many of those have overlapping, right? They kind of interfere with each other. Right. But even though I still think there's, a very high ceiling on KPJ and that there's a lot of potential there, at its core, KPJ is a reclamation project, right? The Rockets brought him in from Cleveland. Yes, they were high on him. He has a lot of talent, but Jalen Green is a very clear, he's going to be a future superstar in this league. And so to me, even though the task at hand is more difficult with KPJ right now, I think I don't want to call it, it's not like sunk cost fallacy, but I think it's an inappropriate allocation of resources to say, okay, there's a steeper hill to climb with KPJ's development, so we're going to prioritize putting the ball in his hands more because we think Jalen's going to be okay down the line, regardless of if we give him the reps right now or if we don't give him the reps. I think that's probably a mistake. And like you said, it'll be really interesting to see how long this season goes along and if they ever make that shift to where, okay, now we're going to kind of showcase Jalen Green a little bit more offensively.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I don't think it's the right approach at all. I think they should honestly, they need to do more aggressive staggering. I've talked to them about this before, just like, because you remember the whole Chris Paul, James Harden thing with James and Russ, like the staggering.
Well, they staggered. They staggered in the Pistons game, and then they ran the offense through Eric Gordon. So, I mean,
and you see, and that's what I talk about when you're a coaching staff and you get caught up in games. You get caught, and it's the competitive nature of being a coach, right? You want to win the game. You trust Eric Gordon probably more than anybody on this roster because he's been through it all. So when that tends to happen, that's this coach brain. Like you just gotta do it in the heat of the moment. Go do it. Boom. Is it the right thing to do? Probably not. Jalen Green shouldn't be your number one priority for anything. Putting him on the ball makes it easier for other guys because if he's already showing the propensity of handling pick and rolls, making those high level reads, because all he has is scoring touch, and the playmaking is also there. It's getting better. That can make things easier for other guys. Like part of Kevin Porter Jr.'s development shouldn't only just be on the ball. I can also learn to be off the ball too. So I think it's a catch-22. Like they have to, and it's hard for Stephen Silas because like you said, he's in between a rock and a hard place in terms of that. Because, for example, Christian Wood of the game, he was complaining about not being involved. Like that's another thing you got to deal with as a coach. On top of developing these young guys, you got to deal with satisfying your big man that you gave $45 million. So like, it's a whole lot of stuff he has to deal with all the time. And I think when you combine all that pressure with being in charge of a rebuild and this being the official start of a rebuild, it's tough. And I don't know how you get out of it. Honestly, it's hard. I'm not envious of him at all. That's a crapshoot.
Coming up, I want to dive into, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Rockets offense so far this season, as well as we've got to hit on a little bit of John Wall news here coming up. So nothing major, nothing new on the trade front, but a little bit of news coming out of his agent, Rich Paul, and how that, reflects on the Rockets organization. We'll get there after a quick message from our friends over at Built Bar. Who doesn't love Thanksgiving? I know I do. It's one of my favorite holidays of the year. All the great food, all the great treats, and there's so many different options, so much variety, right? But maybe you want like a delicious, awesome dessert that isn't just absolutely chock full of sugar and calories, right? It's the perfect time for Built Bars. Built Bar is your new holiday dessert. Feast on something delicious and feel good about it. Just one slice of pie has upwards of 300 calories. And that's usually on like the low end, right? Most Built Bars are only 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar, and they've got tons of protein. Look, the thing about Built Bar, right? I've said it before and I'll say it again. Built Bars are basically candy bars that are jam-packed with protein. They're low cal, low sugar, high protein, high fiber. Amazing if you're on a keto diet. Amazing if you're trying to lose weight. They're covered in 100% real chocolate. It's a great option for when you're hungry. If Thanksgiving isn't coming soon enough, go for a Built Bar or two, right? Maybe you're craving some coconut cream pie, go for a coconut Built Bar. Maybe you want some raspberry stuffing, right? Go for a raspberry Built Bar. You can check them out. Just visit built.com and use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your very next order of the best tasting protein bar. So again, that's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Still chatting with the one and only Biggie Velvet. Now, Kelly, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for just a moment. Is there such a thing as maybe like if the Rockets were to just, go full tilt with it and just give Jalen the ball every possession? Like, is there maybe a little bit of an idea that Stephen Silas wants Jalen to play within the confines of of the offense and not basically just say, all right, you're our star guy. We're just going to give you the ball, let you do whatever you want with it, right? Or do you think there's no such thing as too much?
Stephen Silas doesn't seem to me to be that kind of coach. When you hear him talk, and you're in those press conferences too, he talks about bringing the collective group and making them better professionals. Part of being a pro is understanding that you're not going to get the ball every time. You have to learn to impact the game in other ways. His defense still needs work. He still, Kevin Porter's defense, it's improved and it's getting more trust from coach. But the handling still needs work. There are moving parts for everyone to get better at that they talk about on a daily basis. So while it sounds good in theory to just have Jalen handle the ball all the time, you still have Kevin Porter Jr. there, and it's important because you're not playing John Wall. DJ Augustin is not the long-term option. There are no other options on the roster right now. And you're already in the beginning stage of a rebuild. You don't want to go into year 2 of a rebuild not having a point guard in place. So this is why they're so desperate to make this work now, because they really have no other option unless you're bringing in, a free agent. But who wants to come to Houston right now? It's hard. So that's kind of why I think they're so all in on Kevin, because they have to believe in him. They literally, this is what they brought him in. They play with him with John for a little bit. Now John is out the picture. It's all Kevin now. And if they can get that right, it's a shrewd move. But if you get it right, it makes everything easier. Because if Kevin can turn into that guy, and it might take a year, it might take more, it might never happen. Who knows? But in theory, if you can make him a serviceable point guard, a 15-6 guy, then it allows Jalen to play his game comfortably, because you understand that you can stagger those guys still and still have an efficient offense on the floor. It might be two different tales because Jalen is more aggressive, or Kevin is more aggressive, and Jalen can more of the savvy scorer type. But if you can help Kevin get to that level, it brings the collective bar up. So that's why I think it's so, like, giving Jalen the ball every time, obviously that would look great. You get to see him develop faster, but he's not the only guy that they got to worry about. So that's kind of why I see the problem is for Houston right now.
It's definitely a tough balancing act. And I can appreciate the long-term vision of wanting to make sure that KPJ and Jalen develop kind of side by side, as opposed to just throwing all the eggs in the Jalen Green basket and leaving KPJ in the dust. So from that standpoint, I can respect the decision to kind of spread the love around. Now, that said, it doesn't mean that Daniel Tice should be getting 10 shot attempts a game. I'm just going to throw that one out there. But he's not averaging 10 a game. I'm just saying there are some nights where there's some guys that should be a little bit less involved offensively. And speaking on that note about the Rockets offense so far this season, has it surprised you how bad they've looked off? Because I thought, coming into the season, I thought it was going to be the absolute inverse. I thought they were going to be a dumpster fire defensively, and that they were actually going to put up like mid-tier to like, maybe near top 10 offensive numbers, just looking down the roster on paper. I thought they were going to have a ton of offensive production, but the offense has been the thing that's tripped them up so much this season. Is that surprising to you?
No.
Really?
No, maybe I don't expect them to look this bad offensively, because they have times where they've hung in games. Like, it's not like this has been terrible, but it's not consistent, and that comes down to lack of cohesion. That comes down to, because it's hard. Like, when you bring these guys through camp and you have them learn all these NBA concepts and have them do it in game against bigger, stronger, better guys, it's hard. You tend to fall into your old habits. As a young player, what are your old habits? Playing fast, freelancing, trying to make something out of nothing, right? Balance that with guys like Christian Wood that want plays. He wants the ball. He wants the high pick and roll. He wants the ball 15 to 18 feet face up from the basket. Short corners. Like, you have a Jae'Sean that also needs the ball to make plays for others, who also wants to get downhill. It's hard. If you ever watch them play, sometimes they're pointing of where to go, and no one knows really where to go, and the spacing is bad. Part of that is the lineup. The Tice Wood lineup, I don't think it's going to be a long-term thing, because it's just clogging the area. And a lot of that is just I understand why they're doing it now, but I don't think it's going to work long term. And when you're 1-10, you need to make like something should change. You should try something different. Opening up the floor, I think, would make things easier. But a lot of that problem is who you opening the floor for. You know, the spacing. Who are you going to put in there? Like, ideally, House, but he's been up and down with his play this season. So it's like there's a lot of issues with this team, and when you have this many issues,
there's not a quick fix. There's not like one fix all solution.
There's not what. Yeah, exactly. There's not one fix all solution. There's gonna be something's gonna be wrong when you fix this something. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, but the offense, I just think if they play faster, they play better. The numbers support that. But they don't get enough stops on a consistent basis to play that fast. And when they do get down the court, and they set up to their old habits, holding the ball too long, not moving it from side to side, just trying to find the mismatch right away instead of running a play. Or every play doesn't have to be 15, 20 seconds out of the shot clock. They're quick reads. That's why they have these inbound sets. You go to Ed. If B is not working, go to C. Still can go to D. So there's a number of reasons why.
Well, the offensive struggles have definitely made this team a little bit harder to watch, unfortunately, than many would have hoped, at least throughout the early part of the season, because, again, nobody expected this team to be, racking up wins. If anything, at least every time the Rockets lose, you can go look at Paolo highlights or Chet highlights and just, be excited for the draft for this upcoming season. But that said, let's dive in. We got one more little piece that I want to talk about here with you, Kelly, and that's this little bit of news with John Wall, and it's not even directly about John Wall. It's more so his agent, Rich Paul, highlighting the John Wall situation here in Houston. So obviously there's the ongoing situation with Ben Simmons in Philadelphia, and Rich Paul, kind of using the John Wall situation to highlight what's going on, or drawing a parallel to what's going on with Philadelphia with Ben Simmons. And Rich Paul said as much. He said, John is able to play, but Houston is okay using the collective bargaining agreement to pay him not to play. So which way is it? John is perfectly healthy and ready to play, and it's okay in the CBA. We're being professional with both instances, talking about the Rockets and the 76ers. But how can it go both ways? John and the Rockets have been professional about their situation. We are also expecting the same with the 76ers. Kelly, first off, I think it's a little strange that Rich Paul is trying to draw, parallels between the John Wall, Ben Simmons situation. But, even more important than that, at least from a Rockets perspective and through a Rockets lens, can this be viewed as like a positive thing that Rich Paul is actually speaking, talking about the Rockets situation as a positive thing as far as it's, concerned with John Wall? Because I know that there was maybe a little bit of a period of time where we thought, okay, well, how long is this situation going to last for? Do we think like this is going to be an entire season thing, or is John cool with sitting out? And it sounds like, at least right now, everybody's on the same page, from the Rockets to Rich Paul to John Wall, and it seems like that's been a consistent factor.
Yeah. I'm gonna put this.
I know you still want John Wall to play, so I mean, that if you want to double down on that take right now, you can do it. I'm not going to stop you.
No. I mean, it makes like what Rich Paul said. It kind of was strange, but I think he was trying to make the point that the Rockets, there's no confusion there. I think that's what he wants to say. Compared to the Philly situation where the same things every day, no one's on the same page over there. The Rockets at least know that, they're going to keep John out, and they want to focus on the young guys. Is it the right thing? Of course not. But, what can you do? This is more of a business decision. Like, because be real, there's no way you can be John Wall making $47 million. You come to practice every day. You get in here and there on game days. The game you love the most, the game you work your whole life for, and you're healthy and you're not playing. I don't think that makes a lot of sense to me. I don't think if they asked John to play, he would say no. I do not think that. Like, first of all, it's not a unanimous decision to have him not play. Let's start that for starters. But It's just strange to me. But I do see what Rich Paul was saying in terms of the Rockets are okay with paying him that money to have him not, if that means developing those guys. But 1 in 10, like I just don't know if you have someone that can produce like that, and your problems are offensive and cohesion and getting guys organized. There's someone that can do that on your roster who's wearing very expensive jumpers. and
Very expensive street clothes, man.
and looks fantastic.
Right?
It
We
would look better.
we need John Wall on League Fits if he hasn't been yet this season.
But it would be better served having him between the lines. Like, there's no better development than playing alongside a veteran guy that knows what he's doing.
I know we talked. I know you talked about John Wall helping Jalen Green's development. Do you think he would also be able to still help Kevin Porter Jr.'s development, even though we just talked about the fact that they're going all in on the KPJ as the point guard basket? You don't think that'd be detrimental if John Wall were to suddenly be injected back in the rotation?
I said he has to start. Like, you can work something out there. Like, Kevin, I'm sure. The problem is, I'm pretty sure Kevin doesn't want that. If you go back to last season, let's draw a timeline. Christian Wood loved playing with James, right? He looked fantastic playing with James. Remember that little spurt?
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy. It was okay with John. It wasn't, but those are two different kinds of playmakers. Kevin wants to be that guy. Kevin said he needs the ball in his hands. If John's on the floor, John definitely needs the ball in his hands. It doesn't sound like Kevin wants to play off the ball that much. He wants to be trusted as the point guard. So from that perspective, you can't bring Kevin in and then, you know what I'm saying? That's why I see why John's not playing. It's more about, and that's why I said everything's about Kevin. Because if it was just about Jalen, they wouldn't care. They would have John on the floor. But John might get in the way of Kevin's development. And the perspective of, if you turn Kevin, if you have John on the floor with Kevin, Kevin's more of a wing creator than an on-ball lead ball handler, which is kind of not what they want him to do, because John is not going to be there long term. So I understand from that perspective. It's still weird because he's there and they're losing and he's a veteran. But again, guys are stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's a hard thing to navigate, and the Rockets are okay with paying him that money and having him not play because, look, what was it? There were a few calls around training camp, just like normal NBA teams talking, but there was nothing concrete. It was just chatting, right? But which team right now? First of all, which young team? No young team wants John Wall right now. Let's keep that clear. It's too much money. Which good team wants John Wall? Philly, maybe, but that's going to be a domino effect. Like, I could see them getting John if they were able to do a deal, but Ben wouldn't be going to the Rockets. The Rockets would be a third team facilitating a deal. Because they don't want Ben Simmons. They do not want Ben Simmons. But outside of Philly, where else could you see? What other team is out there that says we want John Wall right now? Maybe when his deal is expiring next year, then you can take a swing at it. If you're a Clippers team, why not? When Kawhi comes back, why not? You can't have to try it. But right now, I don't see what the market is for him. And that's why I think the Rockets are comfortable eating that money right now, swallowing it, and just saying, screw it. We'll take care of you in the offseason. So it's a hard situation to be in.
A lot of different storylines converging for this Rockets team this season. But as always, we're going to keep you up to date with them here at Locked On Rockets. Kelly, what do you have cooking up with for us over your ecosystem? What you got going on?
First of all, before I do that, I need to ask a question. Why did they make that Light the Fuse song? That song is awful. That song is not. I'm sorry. Whenever we saw the video,
oh wait, I forgot D House isn't featured on the song. Never mind. I was worried my podcast numbers were going to dip. Anyways, all right, keep going. Now, I will be completely honest. I like the song. It's just overplayed to hell in Toyota Center. Like, if you're at Toyota Center, I remember the first home game. Now, I remember the first home game. Adam Spolin was right next to me, and I was like, and we were talking about it, and talking about the fact that all right, they're gonna play it during what they play it during, like the pregame hypes, just leading up to fans are trickling to the stadium. They play it during when the players run out the tunnel. They play it right as soon as the first tip happens. Like they play it right after the tip off. So I mean, it's just they're playing it so much. They're like bludgeoning you over the head with it over and over and over. So I like it. It's a bit cheesy. I'll give them that. It's a cheesy song, but it's okay. We don't have to agree on this one, Kelly.
But yeah, I got some stuff cooking. I got an exclusive with Christian Wood that I haven't done. It's coming. I still have the Brotherhood piece with Kevin and Jalen coming. I have something with a coach on Houston's offense coming. Those are the big three things coming, and I still have the house thing working on. So a lot of stuff coming between now and the end of the year. So just stay tuned. Hopefully, if they win, I get better content. Typically. So
hey man, I'm right there with you. When they win, people listen to the show more. So I'm
exactly
there. We go.
When no one wants to go read the article when they 1-11. Why they lost. So
we out here both struggling for content just a little bit, but we're making the most of what we got so far.
Making some shake, man. So it's all good. Keep y'all engaged.
All right, Kelly. As always, it's amazing being able to talk hoops with you. Any last words from Biggie Velvet for the listeners?
Stop playing like the Fuse, man, and I'll be satisfied. That's all I gotta say to y'all. Have a good night. Be blessed, and come on to the game.
All right, that's Iko's parting message for today's episode. As always, hope you enjoyed the show. Appreciate you tuning in and checking us out. If you haven't done so, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcast: Apple, Spotify, Google, the brand new Odyssey app, free and available on all platforms. Make Locked on Rockets your first listen of the day. Also available on YouTube. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are so close to breaking 3,000 subscriptions. As always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked on Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.